Okay. We know the date command, so you guys know that date, which displays date and time, and there's a time command that doesn't display time, rather time something, right? Time you can do a dot out, time ls. So time, the how much time the particular command takes, right? We covered that. Remember, the copying a block of file, input file to output file. Remember, we using C standard system calls and all that, we'd use the time command, right? Okay. UMask. Remember, we covered UMask. You can set it so that when you create a new file, that's the permission that will be masked, right? So 66066. So there's no read write permission for others. UMask 0, basically that means there's nothing to suppress. If I create a file, everybody got full permissions. Okay, so we know that that's a bad idea most of the time. So octal notation, so that's a default value in one of the startup files. You can change that if needed. So Z back to original. Okay, that's a UMask, purpose of the UMask. gprof, we looked at the gprof to see when we are doing the template functions and all that. We showed you gprof to kind of see the instances of various template functions and how much time each one takes. So gprof is for GNU profiling your application. Profiling your application means seeing how much time each function takes and all that for optimization purpose. Again, we covered that earlier. So set FACL, get FACL. What these are, remember when you have this, if you type in the ID, it will kind of display your group IDs, user ID and group ID too. So by default you are part of some group. So when you change the permissions, right, when you do this UMask permissions 006, let's say I want to give the permissions for my group, then when I do like this -x, you can see now my group got the permissions. In fact, let's do one more thing. 026. What do you think that will do? Two stands for what? That's a 1, 2, 4 position, right? Yes? Is it? Yeah, we have to reverse of that, right? We are suppressing the write. Read is okay. See, remember 026 means 000, 010, and 110, right? That's what that means. You are not suppressing for you, anything for you, but you are suppressing the write for the group, and you are suppressing the read write for everybody. Are you with me? Does that make sense? It's octal notation. Okay. So don't suppress anything for me, owner. Suppress the writing alone, because we don't want others to write. We just want to be read only for your group, and that's for your group. And for others, no read, no write either. So, okay. So it's not accessible for others. So now, okay, that's fine. Now, let's say I give you a group project for you guys, and don't worry, there's no group project. Let's say I give you a group project for you. You want to make your own teams, let's say, right? So you make your own teams. Then if you want to use this permission, you want to obviously share the files within your team, right? So don't say that I will use Google Docs. That's one option. Or some other coding tools. If you want to do that here, right? So one way is to create a group, right? Create a group and work with that. But that requires a system administrator help and all that, right? We cannot do it at the user level, okay? So that's when these commands come in. Set FACL, get FACL. What does that mean? Let's see whether I have set FACL, get FACL. Set file access list. File access control list. What it means is after creating a file, you can tell, okay, this user, please give them permission to read. Okay? You can specify which users can which users we want to give permissions to read. Okay? So that pretty much means that you can create your own files and give the permissions to your group alone. That's within your control. Okay? You can use this command set FACL, get FACL. This is a getting, this is setting. Let's see them in action. In fact, for that, I'm going to show our well-known command, turn in. You guys use that, right? So when you turn in, right? When you turn in, remember, I need to read. If you turn in as, even though you're writing, if you don't give me permissions, I cannot grade, right? So by running the turn in command, you're running these commands, right? So after copying it in, and then see what happens here, this one. You are giving me the read permissions. You are giving me the read permission, you are giving the TA's read permission too. And I am making sure that nobody else can read. First to change the permission so that nobody else can read, just to be sure, and then we are basically giving permissions for, other than you, only 3 of us. There are 2 TAs. So what are we doing here? Set FACL -m, modify permissions, user, this user, give read permission for that user. And of course you can do read, write and other permissions too. Okay. So if you have a kind of 3-member team, you can do exactly that. Okay. In fact, you can do that. So the one interesting way to do that would be if you set this type of things for the directory itself, then you can deny everybody else from entering the directory. Right? You set up a common directory, your directory, and give the full write permissions for your teammates, but nobody else. Then the inside file permission really doesn't matter. You can use the full file permissions because nobody else can enter anywhere. Okay. So how does the permission look here? See, this X means searchable. The people can come in and search. You are able to run. See. So if I remove that X, basically, then nobody else can even enter the directory. X has a special meaning for directories, by the way. So how would you execute a directory? No, it's not execute. It's more searchable. Whether you can whether others can enter this directory. Okay. So if I change that if I change that now you cannot even run the turn in. If I do this, so does anybody have access? And try that. So yeah, just run the turn in command, see whether it works. Because it won't allow you to go into the directory. Because you don't have, it's pretty much completely fenced off. Just to turn in and enter. Yeah, because it cannot even search the directory, right? So it cannot even search the directory. So try this. Try this command. Yeah. So no such file or directory. So you can see, you can set up your own directory and you share it with your yeah. So okay. Now let's do this. Set facl -m user your net ID mxy 120030. Okay. So now whole world knows his net ID. He's so famous. Okay. So now I'm not going to give write permission. Just take just search permission. Okay. So okay. Now let's do the get facl. See, get facl for the owner, read write execute. For this user, execute. Try that again. Same command, the ls command or a turn in. Both commands really. The other one. Did I type in correct? mxy 120030. Are you able to list my files?
It says I cannot open the directory.
Should work because I have given permissions. At least that's the intention here. So not. It's not able to list the files. Okay. Let me switch it back then. Let's see. Just like initial values. Initial values were this, right? 711 dot. Try again. Well, that's how it was actually. I didn't do anything different. In fact, what? Let me do that and let me see whether it works for me. Yeah, it works for me. See now, even for me, its permissions are same. So, and let me change that even for myself. Let me change that. See, it's same rules apply for the owner too. chmod 0 bin. Nobody can access. Pretty much, it's locked in, except him probably. So now turn in. See, turn in fails. So turn in fails for me too. Okay, so now let me change that to 111. Turn in. Still it says. Oops. That's not good. No. at least I'm still there, so hopefully it will allow me to change. Thank God. Okay. So chmod bin. Okay. So it should work. Chmod 711 bin is what it was before. Anyway, play with that. Maybe have a, you can change into it now. Listing is different. Actually, that listing requires R actually. So you are not able to list, right? Okay, gotcha. Oh, but you can, so you should be able to run turn in. You should be able to run turn in. Okay, so if you want to list the directory, then we need a read permission too. Okay, so searchable is different from listing the directory contents. Okay, so if you know, it's kind of like in the web, right? Web, you cannot list the particular directory, but if you give the proper name, it will allow you to access some file, right? So you need to know exactly what file you're accessing, file name, turn in, for example. But you cannot do ls bin and see the listing. Okay, so you can, if I change the permissions to do this like this, then you can list the directory too. So for directories it works, the permission work a little bit differently. Okay, so the read permission, yeah. Okay, now do the ls. That it's good. ls you are able to do bin. You are doomed forever. Okay, so he can do so. So actually, you know what? Let's check your permissions. Yeah, you're stuck. So I am giving permission to everybody other than him.
So you can deny specific.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I want to deny everything for him. So it's kind of like a user-specific override. That's what it is, really, right? So it becomes user-specific override. You can either give more permissions or no permissions. You can do it. So how do you remove? That's a good question.
Where is that stored? Is there like a configuration file for that or something?
Oh, where is this information stored?
Yes.
Remember the inode structure we covered?
Would that be in the same directory that you're
No, it is attached to inode actually. It's attached to inode, inode structure. Optional reserve. It's somewhere here. I have seen access. Extra field may hold inode generation number and ACL info. You see that? ACL info. Sometimes this will ACL access control list. So no, it's in the it's stored as part of the inode structure here, and right. So here are the extra fields, and if needed, it may use, if you, let's say you put in too many users or something, it may use an extra block or something to store.
Where is the inode structure stored in the function?
Yeah, remember when you create a format the volume, it creates the inode structure, right? Array of inode structure. So that's a space created for that inode structure first, before even create any files, right? When you create a file, the inode is allocated, right? Inode is allocated. At that time you use that, So by default you won't put anything there, but if you do use the the set FA, get FACL, set FACL, yeah, then you have to, it will use that access control list. Now we have to figure out how to undo its damage, you know. So maybe we should make that as a weekly activity.
If you do set FACL dash B, it removes everything.
There you go. Set FACL minus
Minus and then B.
B,
Yeah.
like that. Okay.
The file itself, I believe.
U. Do you need a U? Set FACL. So remove all extend. Oh, it removes all extended ACL entries. Okay. Okay. Set FACL minus B bin. Set FACL. Get FACL bin. Very good. Yeah, but it removed for group 2. So 711 bin. Okay, back to normal. So it's pretty neat command. Basically, it gives a lot more control to the user. You know, you can define your own circles for sharing. Why is this still set like this? That's strange. Oh, because getFAC is not set. Hopefully it works for you guys. Okay. I don't know, I see some inconsistency there. Okay.
Does group name, does that really matter if you have others?
Yeah, that's true. It denies only for the group, but it's open for others, you know. So. Okay, so you can dig deeper and look into that. I wanted to kind of move on and cover the make files a little bit. Okay.
If you deny yourself the ability to edit it, and give other people that.
See, but here's the thing: you can deny yourself the ability to look into the file, but you have the full control of inode. Why would you do that? Accidentally, you may change it or something. Yeah, if you don't believe yourself, or a robot running in your account on your behalf, if you don't believe that, you know. Often I have done something like read only. That's very common. If you want to make some files read only, that way you don't accidentally change it, you know. That makes sense, right? And there are some utilities which expect you to be read only, the files. But denying full permission, I don't know why you would do that, you know. Just a bit too secure. Okay, so make files. Many of you may know make files. It basically says what to do to create the application. Let's say when you have hundreds of files, 200s of files, thousands of files, when you want to make the application, you have to compile everything and make the application. And what if you change then 1 or 2 files? Will you compile everything again? Believe it or not, 1,000 files, 2,000 files, compiling itself will take half an hour or something. You know, that doesn't happen for our assignment because we have very few files. Okay. In fact, in some companies, that's just to compile and create application. That's a group by itself, load build group. Their job is to every week or every day they'll build the application. Okay. And you don't want to get a call from them. If you get a call from them, you know what it is, right? Your code broke it, broke the compilation. So that's one number we used to be scared of in the company. You know, if you get a call, you're in trouble. Anyway, so when you have thousands of files, let's say make few files alone, you change. then how should we compile? Should we compile? Do we need to compile everything? Remember, there's a .o file for everything, right? You don't see it all the time, but it is, you can, if you do two-step process, you can create .o files, then you can create the application, okay? So, from the .o files, so that's what this shows, okay? So, the .o files is object files, intermediate files that represent your source file, compiled version, then you link. Remember, you go through a compilation, then linking. Linking is what creates the application. So let's keep it very simple. What if we change just one file? You don't really want to compile all 1,000 files, right? You need to compile only that file and do the linking, right? So that's what kind of Makefiles helps us to do. So how do you figure out which files to compile then? Well, you meaning computer. How do you make the computer figure? You know exactly which files to compile because you change them, right? So you need to compile only those files. See, you can use the G++ -c, that files alone. Then you can do the link. See, this is the linking step. All the .o files you can do. Well, how do you do this automatically? How do we know, how does the computer know which files got changed? I have this, luckily we have this inode structure. What can we use to find out which file got changed? Time last modified. If the time last modified for particular source file is later than the .o file, then what does it say? Source file and .o file, right? So source file has a later timestamp. It has been changed. So that's a fundamental principle, fundamental idea this Makefiles use. You simply look at the .o files and source file, check the timestamps. Anytime the source file has a later timestamp, it will go ahead and compile. When you go ahead and compile, now the .o file will have the new timestamp again. See? So you want a .o file to have always recent timestamp than the source file. Okay? So that's what it's a very simple idea, right? That's what the Makefiles do. Okay? So let's see, which chapter is this? Chapter 9. Okay, let's go to chapter 9. We are switching now. We are not in C++ code anymore. We are into Linux code. Chapter 9. Chapter 09. Okay. So I'm going to do delete. Okay, don't have anything. Okay, very good. So I just say make. When you do make, by default there's a make file it uses and it just compiles. We'll go back and look into the make file soon. If we try make again, see, there's nothing to make. Everything is made. Okay. So now let's go ahead and pretend as if we change something. 2.c, let's say. Let's pretend we change the 2.c. Well, what do I mean by that? Let's see. Look at the timestamp. Okay. Number 12. This is today. I don't know. Wait. I guess that may be access time. Maybe. See, there are several times, right? Let's do the touch 2.c. So it says the number 12. Say it again. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Wow, what a interesting kind of scary. Yeah? We taught the Makefile exactly on the same day last year. So for Spring guys, I didn't teach it, I guess. So the timestamp is updated. Now you do make. How smart is that? It's not that smart. Wow, he's very quick to point out. It's reasonably smart. Let me put it that way. Reasonably smart, you know. So So it sees that 2.c as a later timestamp, goes ahead and compiles. So this minus c means compile only, by the way. Usually we don't use that, right? Usually just we do G++, boom, star.cpp, so it compiles and links, everything it does in one step. So here, minus c, compile only, then we will be linking later. We are doing in multiple steps, okay? And not only that, here we are doing very fancy way. We are doing several source files. We are creating a library, okay? Kind of like a Java archive, jar, kind of, not exactly, but kind of. So you're creating a library based on several files. So then when you are doing your main file, you are just linking the library. Okay? Yes?
That C++ library for DLL file, is that what Windows?
I believe it's DLL file, but will it work Windows? It's obviously platform specific. It should be similar. You should be able to do the similar thing in Windows, but you cannot transport, right? Unlike Java.
For Unix, it's .a files, that's what
Yeah, .a files. Yeah. In fact, if you create a .a files and you put it in that library directory or something, when you can do like a remember for math or something, later you will use this -l option. You can specify the library what you want to use too. Something like mylib or something like that you can use. Yes? I am not very sure. It may be static, yeah. So you may have to do something extra to make it dynamic. The standard libraries, everything is dynamic.
The one that's in your system.
Yeah, this is probably, you're right. This is static because it does become part of your program, whereas the dynamic ones, it doesn't become part of a program. The dynamically things get linked, right? In fact, we'll cover that topic a little bit later too. Okay? So the bottom line is we are able to kind of find which one is the timestamp and new timestamp and compile. Let's look at the make file. You can specify some flags, what compiler, all those type of things, and this is kind of 2-line version everywhere you will see. So what this means is my app depends on main.o and this file, the library file. Okay, and this is the command to create the my app. Okay, mylib, the library, depends on these things. Depends on 2.0, 3.0 and all that. I don't know why the main is there. Main need not be there, I think. This is clean. So if you want to just clean out everything and rebuild, you can do to make clean. If you want to do a fresh compile, let's say just before releasing the customer, you want to do the fresh installation, you can build, you can do that. This is the install. Install in particular directory, I guess. And here is to pack and send it across. If you want to send us the package, yeah. If you want to kind of put everything together and send it as a package to another place, RPM is a package manager. This is a kind of old mechanisms. Why? Because if the customer has different environment, you have to send the source files. You cannot send the binary. Just now I think we talked about Windows and Linux, right? So that brings a lot of challenges, right? Let's say your company has source code, you want to do this, deploy this application in the customer place, you cannot send the executable alone unless the target customer's environment is same as yours. So the Unix particularly, Linux is obviously hardware is same, but distro may be different. Linux distro may be different, so you may have to compile. Unix for sure, hardware platform very different, so you may have to compile, so which means you have to send the source file and compile there and then deploy there. Just to make sure a customer doesn't steal the code, you have to send one person too.
Or you can just make different binaries for different systems.
Yeah, but if you don't have control over how many, then it's hard. Yeah, that's true. So that's why you see the source files are also sent. See, you do the tar. Tar is kind of putting together, tarball we call it, and tar, and then you send it through the Z means compress, okay, and so put it together and compress, and that becomes the tar.zz. So we use these extensions to indicate what it is. Okay, tar is a tarball, then .zz is GNU zip. Okay, so and then I think this is copy this file to source. So let's do this myapp.rpm. Let's see. So it copied the files to particular directory and it tarred that directory. Okay, tar that directory to this file, and so all this became part of that file. Then it tries to copy into this directory, which obviously I don't have permissions to. Okay, the directory does exist, but this directory doesn't exist. So this one is very heavily used command. Again, we won't use a lot, just that to know how to use the makefile. That's all. Okay. So makefile, you can see the several makefiles here. So the first makefile we saw, and you know what? Let's go back here and show this. This is probably the simplest makefiles, right? There's more tutorials in this page. More sophisticated version of this one. Here are three files, main and factorial and hello, and you see the individual compilation here, right? Individual compilation and then linking. Compile, right? So what if you add two more files? Well, then you have to add the two more files all over the place. So instead of that, here is the sophisticated version where you list only one place. Add new files only here. So this is a more sophisticated version. So it may look quite cryptic. So it sees sources, the object files. Object files is basically take the source files, replace this .cpp with .o. Executable is hello. All means create, work on the sources and create the executable. So how do you do that? Hello depends on all the object files. Then how do you create object files? That's what this shows. From .cpp, how do you create .o files is run this command for each file. That's the output. That's the input file. So this one command applies for applicable for all source files. Okay. So looks sophisticated, right? So this is called dependencies. Okay, all depends on the sources and executable. The executable depends on the objects, and this objects, how do you create that objects? Well, you run through this from this objects. How do you create the executable? You go ahead and link, right? And how to create the objects? That's what this guy shows. .cpp to .o, how to create objects. So this is the linking step, and this is the compile step. In fact, several IDEs use the makefiles below. You know, so you may not know what's going on, but several IDEs even may use makefile or similar strategies below. Of course, it has to be based on timestamp, right? We know that, right? In IDE, sometimes if you try to compile it, say everything is up to date. It may say that, right? Same concepts. Okay. Let's go back to a little bit more complex examples here. So let's go to the next one. Okay, here is a simple one, right? Almost similar to what I show in the PowerPoint. So my app depends on this object files, and from this object files, this is how you build, right? So how you work on individual ones too. What if a header file changes? Let's say a.h changes. Then which ones have to be compiled? Wherever a.h is, right? So these two have to be compiled, right? Do you agree? One challenge is how to make this in sync with the actual source file. Remember, within the source file, you do hash include whatever, right? These both have to match. They are not matching. That's a lot of confusion that can be. Okay, so there is obviously extra work. See, pretty much you have to make sure whatever you have in the make file really matches with the actual header files used in the C++ files. Since the header files generally do not change, one way to get out of that is just do not use the header file. Anytime use the header, change the header file, just clean and compile. Okay? Typically header files don't change most of the time. Okay? So if you do, you can always just delete all the object files and compile. So that will remove that restriction. Okay? So this is the that fancy version, little bit fancy version, not very fancy. Still it shows the individual ones, individual compilations. Even this one still shows the individual compilation. Okay, what's the difference then? I think this is probably using, no, nothing much. There's an install directory, install thing they have added. Okay, finally now you have this okay, 2.0, 2.c, all this, how do we compile? The earlier one we had the, see the 3. We specified how to do using this this command. Okay, we didn't even say anything. See, but the environment actually does compile a default. Also, it compiles. So so it may be using some default mechanism. So clean. Let's do the make clean. Deletes everything. Make all. Okay. Okay, that should be good enough with the make file. So debugging we already covered. Okay, listing and breakpoints, stepping and all that we covered. So Valgrind also we covered. Only thing I haven't covered is this assert statement. So in the programs you can put a assert statement, assert some variable b less than 10, something like that you can do. If b is not less than 10, program will crash right there. Okay, this is to ensure the variables are a particular value or something. You can this is a good way to kind of debug, right? During the development time you can assert particular statement, some condition. If the condition is broken, it will crash the program right there during the runtime. Assert statements, they are very common across. So I think Java has them too. Okay, so I'll return back to Linux kind of programming side in the next class. Okay.